The tennis world didn't just witness a loss. It witnessed a reckoning. What unfolded in Berlin wasn't simply a semi-final defeat. It was the moment an entire sport fractured. Millions of hearts didn't just break, they ignited. And what came next? Nobody in the history of tennis had ever seen anything like it. Fans didn't go home and cry in silence. They organized. They revolted. They declared the championship final, the most prestigious match of the tournament, completely and utterly meaningless. Empty seats, crashing ratings, sponsors in full panic mode. All because one 19-year-old girl from the Philippines dared to make the whole world fall in love with her, and then lost. This is the story of how a single defeat didn't just end a tournament. It exposed the raw, unfiltered power of the people. The dream that captured the world. Before we talk about the collapse, you need to understand the magic that came before it. Eala didn't arrive in Berlin as a household name. She arrived as a 19-year-old with fire in her eyes, steel in her backhand, and absolutely nothing to lose. Match after match, she dismantled opponents who had no business being beaten by someone her age. She didn't just win, she performed. Every forehand was a statement. Every comeback was a sermon. From Manila to Madrid, from Jakarta to Sao Paulo, fans were setting alarms for the middle of the night just to watch her play. Office workers were sneaking live streams during meetings. Parents were letting their kids stay up past midnight because some moments are more important than bedtimes. This wasn't a tennis tournament anymore. It had become a movement. Eala represented something far bigger than a trophy. She was proof that underdogs could walk into the most elite arenas on earth and not just belong, but dominate. Every point she won felt like a victory for every person who had ever been counted out, underestimated, or told their dreams were too big. The world didn't just support her. The world needed her to win. The semi-final, where everything shattered, then came the match that changed everything. From the very first rally, the atmosphere inside the stadium was suffocating with tension. Every point felt like a heartbeat, loud, urgent, impossible to ignore. Alex fought like a warrior. Her forehands were weapons. Her footwork was poetry. She pushed her opponent to the absolute edge, forcing errors, winning battles at the net, refusing to surrender a single point without a war. For 2 extraordinary sets, the crowd was on its feet. Every winner drew a roar. Every close call drew a collective gasp. This was gladiatorial. This was cinema. But sport is cruel. And the crueler it gets, the more it hurts the ones who deserve it least. Unforced errors began creeping in. A line call here, a missed opportunity there. The momentum, that invisible, fragile thing, began shifting. And once it shifted, it wouldn't come back. When the final point landed, when the handshake was exchanged, and the match was officially over, the silence that fell over that stadium was unlike anything tennis had ever produced. Not the respectful silence of a crowd accepting defeat. Not the polite applause for a good match. This was the silence of devastation. Alex dropped to her knees at the baseline. Her face disappeared into her hands. Her shoulders shook. The cameras moved in close, too close, capturing every tear, every tremor, every second of a young woman's dream dying in real time. The stadium didn't know what to do, so it just sat there, stunned, heartbroken, lost. Nobody knew it in that exact moment, but the tournament had just signed its own death warrant. The explosion, when grief became fury within minutes of that final point, social media didn't just react, it erupted. It wasn't like normal sports disappointment. This was volcanic. A wave of emotions so massive, so unified, and so ferocious that it swept across every platform simultaneously. Hashtag Justice for Alex. Hashtag Berlin Boycott. Hashtag She Deserved Better. All 3 were trending globally before Alex had even left the court. But here's what made this different from every other sporting heartbreak in recent memory. The anger wasn't aimed at the opponent. The player who beat Alex played a magnificent match and received nothing but respect. No, this fury had a different target entirely. It was aimed at the tournament, at the system, at the establishment that fans felt had somehow, in ways they couldn't fully articulate but deeply felt, failed their champion. I can't watch the final. I physically cannot do it. My tournament ended tonight. This is the most upset I've ever been watching any sport in my entire life. Without Alex, this whole event means absolutely nothing to me. These weren't isolated comments. They were the anthem of millions. Comment sections transformed into emotional war zones. Tennis pages became grief counseling forums. And somewhere in the middle of all that raw pain, something extraordinary began to happen. Fans started organizing. WhatsApp groups formed by the hundreds. Twitter threads spread like wildfire. Instagram stories, TikToks, YouTube comments. Every digital space carried the same message, the same call to arms. Boycott the final.
Don't watch it.
Don't stream it. Don't give this tournament a single view. Make them feel what we feel. The final is nothing without Alex. Let the stadium sit empty. Let the cameras film silence. What began as heartbreak had transformed into rebellion. And nobody, not the sponsors, not the organizers, not the broadcasters, was prepared for what came next. The final. No one wanted the championship final. The match that's supposed to be the crown jewel of every tournament. The moment every player fights all season to reach. The event broadcasters spend millions to cover. It became the most unwanted match in tennis history. Across every platform, fans weren't just tuning out, they were actively campaigning against it. Who cares who wins? The tournament ended when Alex lost.
Period.
That tweet got over 50,000 likes in under an hour. A fan posted a photograph of a half-empty stadium with a single line of caption, "This is what happens when you break our hearts." And these weren't empty threats. Reports began surfacing of ticket holders giving away their seats. Not selling, giving away. Because they didn't want anyone profiting from a final they felt was hollow. Broadcasters started receiving early signals that viewership numbers were heading toward catastrophic lows. Sponsors began making quiet phone calls, asking nervous questions. The reasoning behind the boycott was devastating in its simplicity. The story was gone. The narrative that had pulled millions of people into this tournament. The underdog, the warrior, the 19-year-old from Manila who was rewriting what was possible. That story had ended in the semifinals. And without that story, the final was just two tennis players hitting a ball back and forth. Technically correct. Emotionally empty. Watching the final without Alex felt, to her fans, like watching a film after the hero dies in the third act. You can finish it. But why would you want to? Her words that made a stadium cry in the eye of the storm. Eala walked into a press conference. She didn't have to say anything profound. She could have given a standard post-match answer. Credit to my opponent, I'll work harder. These things happen. Nobody would have blamed her. Instead, she gave the room something it will never forget. Her voice was barely steady when she began. I gave everything I had. Every single point. Every single rally. I left it all on that court. It wasn't enough today, and that hurts more than you can imagine. She stopped. The room waited. Cameras clicked. A few journalists looked down at their notebooks because looking at her face in that moment was almost too painful. Then she looked up, and her eyes, red from crying, still wet with tears, carried something that nobody in that room expected. Determination. To every single fan who stayed up through the night, who traveled to be here, who believed in me when maybe they had no logical reason to, thank you. Your love carried me through this entire tournament. And I promise you, this is not the end. I will come back. I will come back stronger. The press conference room, full of seasoned journalists who have covered sports for decades, went completely silent. Then the clips hit social media. Within an hour, the comments section had transformed. Fans who had been ready to swear off tennis entirely found themselves sobbing, not from grief this time, but from something fiercer and more lasting.
Pride.
Unbreakable, unconditional, ferocious pride in a young woman who refused to let defeat define her. We're with you forever, Alex. This is just the beginning. You've already won. I was going to stop watching tennis. Now I'll watch every match she ever plays for the rest of her career. The boycott didn't disappear, but it now existed alongside something more powerful, a loyalty so deep it had moved beyond sport entirely. The silence that said everything, and then the tournament organizers responded with silence. No statement acknowledging the boycott. No message of support for the player who had single-handedly made their tournament the most watched event of the season. No recognition that something historic and unprecedented was happening in real time. Just a hollow, corporate non-response that felt, to fans already raw with emotion, like a slap across the face. And fans noticed. They always notice. In that silence, the gulf between the tennis establishment and the people who actually keep this sport alive grew wider than it had ever been. Organizers were watching their tournament trend globally for all the wrong reasons and chose to say nothing meaningful. It was, many argued, the final proof that the sport didn't understand who it actually belonged to. The reckoning, what this changes forever. The Berlin final was played. A trophy was lifted. Champagne was sprayed. Speeches were made. But ask anyone who watched Eala play in that tournament what they remember, and they won't mention the final. They'll mention her. This moment has sent shockwaves through the entire structure of professional tennis, and the reverberations are only beginning. Sponsors are now having serious internal conversations about what it means to invest in tournaments versus individual athletes. When the fans follow the person rather than the event, the math of sports marketing changes completely. Broadcasters are staring at viewership data they never expected to see, being forced to confront an uncomfortable reality that traditional tournament structures may be losing their grip on the next generation of fans. And future tournament organizers? They will think very differently about scheduling, about narrative, about the stories that make people actually care about watching tennis. But beyond all the business implications, beyond the ratings and the sponsors and the structural debates, the most important truth to emerge from Berlin is this: fans are no longer spectators. They are participants. They are emotionally invested co-authors of the stories that sports create. And when those stories are cut short, when the hero falls, they don't just accept it and move on. They push back. They organize. They make their power felt in ways that empty stadiums, tank ratings, and force entire industries to pay attention. The people's champion lost a match. But her people? They won something much bigger. This is not the end. It's the beginning. Eala will return. She will walk onto a tennis court again. Maybe in a week, maybe in a month. And when she does, the roar that greets her will be unlike anything she has ever heard. Because what happened in Berlin didn't diminish her. It elevated her. The tears she cried on that court will become the fire that drives her through every grueling training session that comes next. The heartbreak she carried out of that stadium will be the fuel that burns in her chest the next time she's down a set and needs to find something extra. And the fans who boycotted the Berlin final? They will be right there with her. Louder. More devoted. More unstoppable than ever. Eala is not just a tennis player. She is a phenomenon. A symbol. A proof of concept that one person's courage and heart can capture an entire world and make it feel, collectively, something real. The Berlin chapter is closed. But Eala's story? It's just getting started.